I'll invite you to introduce yourself and introduce John for our next panel.
Cool. Thanks, Casey. And I appreciate the kind words. Loved reading about your company as well. So as Casey mentioned, I'm Mark Schlosser. I head up brand partnerships team at White Ops. And for those of you not familiar, White Ops is a cybersecurity company. We analyze over 10 trillion interactions in any given week, and we help protect our partners from sophisticated bots, which are designed to act and look exactly like humans. So these bots are no longer just sort of clicking on ads or visiting sites. And now they're designed to do things like fill out multi-step form fills, enter into data streams to mimic retargeting and lookalike pools, and even listen to music, oddly enough. And White Ops is helping to protect brands, their full marketing stacks from these types of threats. As it relates to DTC brands, this means ensuring that only humans are entering through their performance marketing tactics, that they're driving to site. On-site interactions such as form fills are not automated, and the result is really efficiencies in key metrics such as CAC, LTV, AOV, clean data pools, and analytics that can be trusted. And so this is the newest battle that we're collectively fighting with the advertising industry against cybercriminals, and we're already seeing significant returns for our performance-focused partners by increasing the digital marketing ROIs by over 6x. So excited to really dive right in. And John, great to be here and chatting. And so thank you for your time. Would love to, would be great if you could sort of introduce yourself here and tell us more about your role.
All right, great. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is John Sheldon. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Smile Direct Club. You hear me okay?
Hear you loud and clear.
All right, great. Yep. So I've been with the company about 2 years, and we have had a pretty meteoric growth in my time. And the purpose of the company is to really help democratize access to a straighter smile that people will love. Really focused on enabling that through kind of creating greater access to care through affordability. We're about 60% less than other teeth straightening options. And convenience. You can actually enter into working with our brand either entirely from home or through one of our Apple Store like shops, or working with your dentist.
Cool. Every time I hear Smile Direct Club, it does put a smile to my face for one reason or another. So you must have a very smiley office.
All right, good.
When it's there. So tell us, being part of White Ops and being like a mission-driven company that's out to disrupt the economics of cybercrime. And you mentioned very mission-driven. But would love to just hear a little bit more about your mission and how it's really sort of disrupting this space and how it aligns with the work that you do today.
Yeah, I mean, our mission really is to open up the availability of smile care to a much broader audience than ever before. 60% of the counties in the United States, for example, don't have access to an orthodontist resident in the county. Our solution and our ability to allow somebody to take an impression kit at home and work with our 250 dentists and orthodontists via a teledentistry platform, enable that access. And we're in basically all of those counties, providing access to care that's never existed before. For me, what I get a lot of reward about is those deserts, if you will, of orthodontic care are most often in communities that are disadvantaged economically, that have been historically left behind in the healthcare system. And so we're very proud that the business is disproportionately servicing, for example, African American community, Latino community in the United States, and alternate ethnicities in other countries that we're in greater access as well. So we're in about 10 countries.
And it's super interesting. And I think one of the things that COVID has done is really sort of created and shown us where efficiencies could be created. And I think telehealth sounds like the efficiencies have always been there, and now people are really just seeing their eyes to it. And the other thing is it's super interesting of what you just said is as socioeconomic disparity has happened even more due to COVID and people losing their jobs, it must be quite rewarding to be able to still allow people to be able to have this access.
Yeah, and when you're a disruptor in a space using technology the way we are, originally telehealth teledentistry was a headwind, right? Everybody was fighting with regulatory and so on. But I think we've all had our eyes opened in this time period to recognize just how much value the ability to get your health care in a remote basis you really can bring to the table. And so we've seen what was originally a headwind for our business now kind of flip around and propel us, and is now a tailwind for the business.
Cool. It's a fascinating conversation. And so you essentially disrupted the dental industry, which is a fascinating thing. Been around for a long time, and there must have been some sort of misinformation that could have been arisen by fear, especially from some of the incumbents. How do you sort of combat those challenges within the market?
Yeah, that is an interesting challenge, right? The disrupted don't really enjoy it very much, and then they're entrenched and they fight back. So,
Mhm.
industry groups in specific have been engaging, frankly, in a years-long misinformation campaign about our business, and we're fighting those crises every day. The great news is that what they're saying is false, and we can prove it's demonstrably false. And we've had to, we've been able to, build out our credibility, bringing our doctors forward, demonstrating the power of our teledentistry network. And now, with over 1 million customers having gone through the treatment, there's just a huge army of 1 million voices that can back us up when we say what we say about our brand. And that's been, one of the key things that we've done most recently in the last several months is just bring forward the stories of actual successful customers and let them tell the story for you. That's been maybe our best way of handling some of the misinformation and education in the space.
Yeah, for sure. And it's relating to this conversation. It sounds like some of this is probably being done by just automated bots, and something that we've seen and isn't uncommon. And we've even seen just from reviews to even like public opinion polls trying to skew widespread opinion. So, you hit on sort of personal connection, and do you find that often is the best way to sort of combat that, is just to tell the real stories of your customers and the access you provided?
Yeah, so let me go back to your point about the bots just for a second and support your point, which is, one of the things that we see is that every single social media post that we have has a handful of bots that immediately comment on it. All of them have no followers. They're all clearly not real people. They're just automated gunners that are set up to spread misinformation. We've been able to manage through that now. We've built some of the reputation processes that we need, but that is definitely prevalent in the industry. I do think I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Well, it's just, the personal stories, because if you tell for real people, real humans, is really the only way to sort of say that this is not actually the case.
When you sell a transformation product, the best way you can make your case is by showing the transformations. And those happen on an individual by individual basis. And so we've really invested in getting to tell those stories, which is really powerful. Our most successful commercial in the market to as of this moment, is a commercial where the woman opens by saying, "Smile Direct Club changed my life." Right, and that Tremonti is the woman who stars in that, and you can just see all the ways that from beginning to end, starting with helping her transform her smile has really impacted her life. She's gone on to learn to become a midwife. She's got now a relationship in place. She's got promoted at work. She's got all kinds of things that have going on in her life that she would tell you started when she decided to go through this transformation of her smile, and it gave her the confidence she needed to take on all these other things she was interested in.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's one thing that you probably have to tackle is bots and misinformation and so showcasing those stories. Another thing I was recently, well, not even recently anymore, but when Casper IPO'd, I was reading in the papers, they published that there was over 250 or some number very close to that DTC brands, mattress brands that were created after seeing their success. Have you seen similar trends within your vertical to sort of duplicate the success that you guys have had, and how do you stay differentiated in those particular cases?
Yeah, there's no question that there are copycat businesses that are springing up. The good news that we face in our business is there are some very significant moats that protect this business and make it extremely difficult enter and to do so with economics that are going to work for the business. You have to run the financing. You have to be able to manufacture your own aligners, and then you have to be able to handle tons of customers. And we've spent the last 6 years building up this teledentistry platform to really make sure that we stay on the right side with regulators and so on. All of those things are really significant barriers to the business. Even so, about every 6 months, a new competitor will pop up, and because of our success, they'll get funded. And there's no doubt if you search on our brand name today, you'll see one or two of them trying to pick up on our coattails, in different social media or in paid media circles. But on the whole, because of the moats around our business, we have I think a better protection than maybe most disruptors.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating, just in terms of how regulation has allowed you guys to get a step ahead, because so much groundwork needs to be placed ahead. But competition, generally speaking, is definitely a good thing, and I'm sure it sort of drives you to go to the next level as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And we've been able to create so many new customer experiences and so on that we've patented all throughout the way. We've got parts of our impression kit that are patented. We've got parts of our Smile Shop experience that are patented, and as a business, we're protecting those, as part of as we continue to innovate.
Cool. That's it's a good conversation. And just to switch lanes slightly here, largely in the same category of just performance innovation, is really utilizing sort of data and analytics to ensure your brand and your bottom line continues to grow. You're the CMO of a rapidly growing D2C brand, obviously continuing to grow, see competition, but you still have to be very data oriented. So what are some of the ways that you use data and analytics today to drive your marketing decisions?
Yeah, I almost would turn the question around. I can't even think of a way we're not using data to drive our decisions. And as a business that's a D2C brand, we have visibility, to that data from top to bottom in our business. And I literally, in front of me here, 4 screens, loaded with data flashing at me pretty much all day long. And we're looking at whether it's customer data or site performance data or marketing effectiveness data. We're looking at that stuff every day, all the way down, by the way, through the customer experience. So I know how we acquired you at the beginning, and I also know at the bottom, who made your aligners, who was a doctor that approved your plan and worked with you on that plan. All of those elements, and I can help make sure that we're tying those things together with a really cohesive customer experience all the way through. And so, yeah, the data access that I have as a marketer here, frankly, it's a dream come true. I've been in and around e-commerce and D2C for 25 years. This is really what I've been looking for, as a leader to, help drive decisions. And if you look at our website right now, you might not notice this, but there are over 40 tests going on in the US website right now simultaneously. Wow. And we're using that to optimize and enhance our customers' experience from end to end.
Yeah. So and as you're talking about data here, it's sort of an interesting conversation. And we'll correlate this back a little bit to bots here. Has there ever sort of anything within your data that you're just like, this can't be real, and you're making tons of real-time optimizations? You have 40 tests going, and that's sort of that will infer a lot of your spend and the tactics that you're doing. Is there ever anything within your data that you're ever like, wow, this can't be real?
Yeah, of course, that happens all the time. And the biggest thing that what it shows is something broke. Right? Where you say, hey, we've been going along at 8%, and all of a sudden something fell off the cliff. Consumer behavior doesn't change that dramatically over a short period of time. And so, usually we have to go find out, look, the data is showing us something that can't possibly be true. What broke? And then if that's not the case, then we have to start looking into, what are the different possible fraudulent elements that may have entered into the equation for us. And we've had some of those issues in the past. By way of example, we had a series of bots that had previously, gone in. We have limited slots in our Smile Shops, and it was going in and automatically filling up a bunch of the slots, and then nobody showed up. And so, we've built some of the things that we need to do to protect against that now. But that's an example exactly of what you're talking about.
And was that just, and I'm curious, was that like a competitive assault, or was that more of just somebody trying to get paid because you were paying every time an appointment was booked? Did you ever sort of figure that out?
It was. We don't know if it was a competitive assault. I'm not ready to make that
Yeah, yeah.
accusation, but it's certainly, it was nefarious and designed to take up valuable spots in our smile shops. And so, gladly we were able to identify how that was happening and where it was coming from and how to shut it down as fast as possible.
And I get fascinated by these conversations because we're married into this world of cybersecurity and advertising, and I'm more on the advertising side, and most of the folks on my team are from the cybersecurity side. There's former FBI agents, former Department of Defense, all the three-letter sort of organizations you can think of, and I sort of learn new things every day in the 5 years that I've been here, and are there, we've seen when we have conversations with folks, sometimes people have no idea that this exists. And it sounds like you have a general idea and you've seen certain things. And, sometimes we'll turn on a campaign and we've seen up to 40% of paid traffic that spots. Like, are there certain tactics sometimes that you steer away from just because you say, look, we're not getting enough authenticity from these numbers and they're not driving enough business outcomes?
So ultimately, the big issues the big goals that we have in the business and how we measure, and typically in every way we try, how we pay, is for something that either means somebody is showing up at an appointment that they booked, or they're returning the impression kit that we mailed to their home. And so, at some point in the process, a real human has to be there, right? Or the next step doesn't occur. And the good news is we've engineered a lot of the incentives in our marketing around and focused on ensuring that that's the point where we would pay, and that fraud can be kind of snuffed out of the system before that point to the best of our ability. There are elements where it could enter in, but we've worked really hard to kind of head that off at the pass and really engineer our marketing efforts to be more focused on ensuring that we only pay once we can kind of ensure that a human has to be behind the next possible behavior.
That's smart, and it's a good way to think about data, and a good way to ensure that there is actually humans behind it. In terms of like data and analytics, are there any gaps that you see in the market today?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's seen me speak at other events know I have a stump speech around data transparency and some of the challenges and frustrations that I have, with some of the walled gardens that are out there that dominate the media space. And it seems like that, they continue to take away more and more of our ability to kind of stitch this stuff together. Good news for us is we're big enough now that we're building kind of back-ended ways of doing that work. But obviously, the most transparency possible in a marketing environment is what I'm looking for. So it's trying to pull that out of your biggest media partners is where I spend a lot of my time.
So you're a big brand, you're a big title in terms of that. It has to be easier. Like, are you finding success in pushing the industry forward in this way, or what are some tools that you can share with the folks on the call today, just in terms of where you found success? What are other areas that other folks can sort of join in collectively to help?
Yeah, this is actually one of those spaces where I worry that there's going to be a bifurcation in the industry, because the level of investment that we have to make to tie into these guys' APIs, to validate, to check it, to collaborate with them, to do that in meaningful ways, is a barrier that most brands aren't going to have the ability to do. And so, I worry that there, in this walled garden world, there's going to be a little bit of haves and have-nots, and it's, being on the have side, I guess I should like the barrier that creates, but at the same time, I just don't. Again, I'm a big transparency guy, transparency of data guy, and I think the industry benefits when that transparency goes from top to bottom.
What are the key metrics that are missing in these worlds that you're getting from other worlds that you're not getting today from those walled gardens?
Well, now, I mean, it's we're even losing some of the the view through data and so on that provides visibility to when and how much somebody watched a particular asset or video that you've displayed. That's one that we care about. But there's a whole host of them. As it relates to retargeting, tightening retargeting windows, tightening pixel, data fires. The browsers are now starting to take away what data gets passed around in the industry as well. And so it's, and I get that's all in the name of privacy on the other end. And I do understand that. However, having come from a world, in MasterCard, who's solved this problem 25 years ago, I'd love to see the walled garden media gardens take some of the tips and tricks that folks like MasterCard have figured out how to maintain privacy while communicating data to their core banks, and bring that into this world so that we can get better visibility to marketing effectiveness.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think a lot of these areas, it's like fundamentally they may have been built a certain way, and then all of a sudden, as the privacy issues began to grow, it just became impossible to even right the wrong from. In our world, we've seen the programmatic space, funny enough, like clean themselves up a lot more, just because there's easier ways to integrate and there's easier ways to sort of implement for brands, for ad tech platforms. And one of the areas that and one of the reasons why we created a new product, Marketing Integrity, was just because there's not transparency into whether there's humans being driven to site from so many different tactics out there, whether it's search, social. And so what that's helping to solve is, okay, that's one point of analytics and data that hasn't been available to marketers. And we were continuously hearing that's such a large percentage of spend. And so it gives sort of that extra level of transparency. So it's been something that we've been working on solving from our lens as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, I think for me, where I think this has to get solved, it has to get solved on the media player side, because short answer is we're measuring effectiveness based on downstream metrics, not based on traffic alone. And so if you're the media player and then all kinds of bots are clicking through on your site, it's gonna crush the performance on your site, and therefore you're just not going to get my dollars. And that has been happening with particularly some of the programmatic players that we've been working with historically. And I agree with you. I've seen that some of that has been cleaned up, and so I really hope, fingers crossed, that they're starting to get ahead of this a bit. But they're frankly the players in a world that has people like our business that can look at those downstream metrics. That's just how we're gonna measure folks, and they're gonna look terrible if all the bots are eating up the traffic.
For sure, and we're definitely in alignment there, and it's forward-thinking marketers like yourself, and something that we've really believed in is collective security, and just forming like coalitions. It's help us do things like take down Eve, where for one of the first times ever there was folks arrested in non-extraditable countries due to the collaboration we put together with the FBI and many other industry leaders who are competitors in the space. And even brands sort of forming coalitions to ensure that, and we've seen, certain areas more recently in the news as well, but forward-thinking marketers that actually form coalitions and aggregate the power together. We believe that's how you end and you disrupt the economics of cybercrime. So it's a really important thing. So shifting gears slightly, consumer mindset during COVID. And then, we'll definitely leave some time for Q&A. So if anyone has Q&A, please start dropping them in, and we'd love to sort of answer some of those. There's a recent quote in eMarketer speaking about just like DTC brands that suggested consumers during COVID will shift from nice to have products to only buying need to have products during this time period. Curious on where the scale for Smile Direct Club falls into that consumer mindset. And, I think, everyone believes every DTC brand should be just killing it right now because you figured everything else out. But how does consumer mindset play into sort of the results you've seen during this sort of global pandemic?
Yeah, really two big things here, Mark, that are helping propel our business forward. One is we had the agility when this all hit to flip from being overwhelmingly in our shops to start the journey to overnight flipping to really utilizing our at-home impression kits as the primary way for people to start with our business, and that flipped over in about 3 days. And the agility of our business to be able to adjust to that was really crucial, and we've been able to continue to drive the business, even though our primary entry point got shut off, on virtually no notice. The other piece here is, we're in a place where everybody's been sheltering at home, and there's a lot of realization now that, hey, this is the time I can work on myself. And so, I'll go through this aligner treatment. Our typical aligner treatment is 4 to 6 months. And so, you can emerge from this COVID period, with a brand new smile. And by the way, when have you ever looked so much at somebody's face, large on your screen? People are looking at your smiles now more than ever. And so between Zoom, these 4 months away and everything else, the opportunity for people to really use this as a transformation time has been, frankly, a very strong thing for our business.
Such interesting standpoints. And as you're talking about it, I'm like, you know what? I could have actually started already. Maybe it's my time to start tomorrow and work on my smile. I think we're there. It's a great point. I think like at home fitness has seen like Peloton stock, which maybe
70 plus today.
Now it's insane. So, yeah. So there's all, at home fitness, Mira obviously just being purchased, and Smile fits right into that category. So it's
yeah.
Great
Yeah.
point.
By the way, you can include in that the deal that Teladoc just did today. So a lot of this kind of telehealth business and and remote fitness are really seeing a huge amount of tailwinds propelling them forward right now.
Cool. And we'll wrap up with a final question before the Q&A here. Where do you think, what are we, August 5th, 6th, whatever day we're on now? Where are we in August as we finish up the summer next year? Like what are we talking about as a world and as an industry? Any sort of Nostradamus predictions here?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a regional response to what the crawlback is going to be, and you're going to see that just in the United States. We're going to see that on a global basis as well. By a year from now, I hope we're at a place where everybody has access to a vaccine. But I also think that there's a possibility that we get in a wave where there's something like this every 2 to 5 years that impacts the business. We're just such a globally connected world right now that the ability to spread something that's contagious like this is quite real. I think, but at the same time, humans are unbelievably resilient, and I think it's going to take us a little bit to really adjust to all of it. But I drove 1,000 miles this last weekend, stopped at a bunch of rest stops. Every single person in the rest stops I stopped at was there with a mask, was staying away from each other, was polite to each other about the whole situation. I know that's not true everywhere. That was just my experience this weekend. But I do think that the resiliency of people is going to shine through, and any economy bump is going to be short-lived. With so much attention. On the governmental level on ensuring the continued economy. So I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist about all of this. It might get a little worse before it gets better. I think that may be true. But for the most part, I think a year from now, we're recovered with new habits.
One good story from driving 1,000 miles. It's got to be one good stop. Your favorite place? Anything in that?
It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat the hills of West Virginia.
There you go. I have a sister-in-law that went to WVU. I know it well. With the recent, so now moving on to Q&A, if it's okay with you.
Please.
Cool. With the recent boycott of Facebook, as well as the environment of COVID, where have the marketing budgets shifted? Is it more search, influencers, something else? Any sort of tidbits you can share there?
Yeah, I mean, you probably could read the articles on this, but the D2C businesses that rely on Facebook were a little bit less a part of the boycotts on Facebook. Nonetheless, every one of us wants to be able to diversify our marketing spend and comfortably shift between performance platforms. And so, we've used this time, in COVID, where we've adjusted our budgets to really step all the way back and start from ground zero and build and make sure that every single thing that we're doing is creating incrementality and in the business. And was it Churchill who said, "Never let good crisis go to waste"? We're using this time to really relearn about our business in the current world, and how we spend and what's driving incrementality. Is a huge part of that.
Cool. And I think that's, you could speak about marketing and you could speak about everything just with that. There's so many, every day I run into something, I go, why weren't we doing that before? And I think that's for everything. Yeah.
I have a sister-in-law who works in a restaurant. She's saying, why aren't these procedures that we're doing right now, why wasn't that what we were always doing? I think you're right. You're going to see everywhere an adaptation of of these behaviors, across even beyond the COVID time period.
Cool. And John, so Chris P asks, how are you balancing targeting versus scale, especially as it relates to CPA? And how are you considering the entry of brick and mortar into DTC, i.e., Walmart doubling SKUs, Walmart.com doubling SKUs?
Yeah. So let's start with targeting. We do a mix of these things, right? I mean, that is the classic balance. But what we found, particularly with these broad scale, highly information based environments like a Facebook, is opening up and letting the algorithm do its thing really helps and really works. Then we try to feed it intelligent data along the way, critical signals that say, hey, that was a good one, that's not a good one, that's a good one, that's not a good one. But at the same time, their ability to then say, oh, you told me that was good, I see a bunch more people that look like that, often goes beyond what we can do with targeting. And so by keeping the audiences a little bit more open, we found more success.
Cool.
That second part was about
SKUs.
Walmart and other retailers entering in D2C. The D2C business is really hard. And there's a lot. I mean, again, I've been in and around e-commerce going D2C for 25 years. And there's just a lot of hard work that they're going to have to do. Walmart's going to be successful. They've got the market to be able to do it. It's the I think what you're seeing right now with some of the bankruptcies and so on that are happening and kind of this slightly smaller, the next tier down of retailers, is that transition is going to prove to be extremely costly. And we're going to see kind of turnover in what the leaders are in varying categories as critical D2C businesses, step in to fill the void.
Yeah, and it's one of the sad things about this about COVID has been seeing sort of those historic brands that have filed for bankruptcy and how could they rebound, if at all. So what is sort of the what do you sort of see as the future? It's a big question here to retail and e-commerce, and sort of the biggest opportunities to take away.
So I was looking at a McKinsey study the other day that basically said this COVID period accelerated our transition to digital by about 9 years. And awesome. I believe it. What is happening was ultimately inevitable in terms of what's available from data, what's available in brands and so on. But really the fact that this got so accelerated, I think, frankly, is very exciting and is something that as a brand, we're trying to make sure that we're leaning into really heavily as well.
That's it's a great statistic. I did not hear that. I did not read it. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of like 9X, what do you think was lagging the most in terms of the digital landscape that you think accelerated here?
Well, I think we've all learned about what can actually be done from home, and now more than ever that has more appeal and greater appeal. And so that's something again, our brand has seen a massive amount of shift to our at-home impression kits and communicating with doctors via telehealth. I mean, we have a video chat, a feature that where all of our customer service have access to, connecting to consumers. And you say, oh, this aligner, I've got something wrong with it. Can I show you? And then we flip over onto video cam and they just show it to us. We say, oh, I see why. Let's do this. And we can solve that problem for people, frankly, faster than ever. And so, the high bandwidth combined with a need to stay at home and the kind of the ingenuity that goes with that has really shown us how much can be done, without having to drag ourselves into some place.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that that relates and correlates really well to me is I'm a father to a 2-month-old son, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And I've just been the ability to spend time with my wife and take calls when I need to, but at the same time, really enjoy my parental leave. And just, if I'm at home and I work a couple hours a day, like that's all possible now. And, but it's really allowed me to enjoy my time because, in normal years a lot of us are on airplanes, just nonstop going to conferences and
I did it too.
New times. And man, it's like, wow, I hear this all the time. It's like, wow, it's refreshing not to hop on another airplane.
I bet. Yeah, for me too.
So it's been great. from that perspective. And I know that we're coming up on time here, and I know that because I see Casey is hopping on.
Hey, Casey.
Hey, great chat, guys. And John, really fascinating what you're saying about the Facebook boycott being sounds like more of a wake up call to reduce dependence on these social platforms. But with some of the comments, Mark, you were saying about how programmatic and those ecosystems have been cleaning up. We are seeing a lot of brands looking more to programmatic, where it is more it is measurable, and it's come a long way in terms of both brand safety and less rampant fraud. Where I know there were a few years where it was pretty much expected that you were seeing a lot of that. But yeah, really fascinating. I wish we had more time for you guys, but we do have our next session ready. But thank you so much, and fascinating conversation. Would like to introduce coming up next is
Mark.
Chris Pernay.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Casey.